Two people sit across a kitchen table, plates empty, neither one speaking. The clock ticks past the moment when someone should have said something. You've been in that silence before, not watching it, living it. You swallowed the sentence. Now you watch from outside yourself, the way you'd watch a tide pull back from the sand, slow, exposing everything the water had been hiding. You tell yourself you're keeping the peace. You're not. You're rationing yourself, one shrunken sentence at a time, and calling it patience. Here's how you know it's you. You rehearse what you want to say until the moment to say it has already passed. You agree out loud while something in your chest disagrees completely. And when a conversation ends before you have to speak the real thing, you feel relief, a strange, guilty relief, like you got away with something. You didn't get away with anything. You just moved the debt forward. Think of that table again, the silence sitting between two plates. That silence has a shape. It was carved long before tonight, meal after meal, disagreement after disagreement, swallowed the same way each time. The tide doesn't create the shoreline's shape. It only shows you what was carved there long before it arrived. So tonight, alone, in a room, out loud, say one true sentence you've been rationing in front of other people. Not to them, yet. Just to the air. Let your own voice hear it first. Now here's why this particular week matters. On August 28, the moon reaches 4 degrees and 51 minutes of Pisces, pulled into partial shadow. This is not a small transit. Pisces rules what you dissolve into silence to keep other people comfortable. The sentence you soften, the disagreement you swallow, the truth you let evaporate, rather than watch someone's face change. An eclipse here doesn't ask permission. It simply pulls the water back and leaves the shape of what you buried sitting there in plain sight for one exposed day before the tide comes back in and covers it again. So you have a narrow window. One day where the shoreline shows itself before the water returns and smooths it over like nothing happened. But here's the thing, that shoreline doesn't look the same for everyone standing on it. What gets exposed and how it feels when it does depends entirely on where you're standing when the water pulls back. That's why we're not giving you one answer tonight. We're giving you 12, one for each sign, and we're covering them across 4 waves, 3 signs at a time. So each one gets the room it actually needs, instead of being rushed past like another shrunken sentence. Because that's the whole point, isn't it? You've spent long enough making yourself smaller to fit into other people's comfort. The shoreline doesn't owe the water an apology for what it's kept underneath, and neither do you. Stay through this first wave. Your sign is coming, and when it arrives, don't ration it. Let's start with you, Aries, because you're mid-argument right now in some part of your life, and you're winning on volume while losing on truth. You know the difference even as you raise your voice again. That loudness isn't passion, not really, it's cover. It's what happens when the actual sentence, the plain one, feels too dangerous to say out loud. So you say everything around it instead, louder and louder, until the room is full of noise and empty of the one thing you meant. Here's what that costs you, quietly, underneath the winning. You keep winning arguments and losing the actual relationship, every time. The eclipse falls in your solar 12th house this time, the house of what you hide even from yourself, and it pulls back the armor you didn't know was armor. What's underneath is smaller than you expected, quieter, truer. Try this today. Say the quiet version of your point once, before the loud version shows up to bury it. Just once. See what happens when the room hears what you meant instead of how hard you meant it. Now you, Taurus. Different scene, same shape of question underneath. You're not the one raising your voice, you're the one nodding along in a meeting, agreeing with a decision you actually disagree with, because disagreement feels like a boat you don't want to rock. But here's the contradiction you're living inside without naming it. The stability you're so carefully protecting is being built entirely out of things you didn't say. That's not stability. That's a structure with your own silence holding up every wall, and silence is not a weight-bearing material. It shows up later as tension in your shoulders, your jaw, your sleep. The eclipse lands in your solar 11th house now, the house of groups and shared direction, and it's asking you to notice exactly where in your body that unspoken disagreement has been living rent-free. Name one disagreement out loud today, calmly, no apology attached to it. Let the boat rock a little, it has more give in it than you think. And you, Gemini, you're one of the 3 signs this eclipse is leaning on hardest, and here's the shape it's taking in your life. You're mid-story with a friend right now, or you will be soon. circling the actual point for the third time, dressing it in one more joke, one more tangent, because the plain sentence underneath feels too bare to just say. So here's the question worth sitting with today. What does your voice sound like when there's no joke rescuing it at the end? Do you even remember? Because somewhere in all that clever circling, the plain shape of what you mean has started to feel like a stranger to you. Try finishing one story today without the punchline at the end. Just let it land bare, unfinished feeling, exposed. It won't fix everything, but something in the room will shift. People will respond to what you actually meant instead of laughing past it, and that's not nothing. That's the beginning of being heard instead of just enjoyed. This window doesn't stay open long. Eclipses don't wait for you to feel ready. They arrive, they crack something open, and then the ordinary noise of your life rushes back in to cover the gap. Whatever plain sentence is sitting in you right now, today is unusually generous towards saying it. Tomorrow, the noise comes back. Cancer. Here's the quiet ache underneath everything else. You protect people from your own needs so consistently that those needs have stopped announcing themselves. Someone asks what you actually want, and you draw a blank, not because you don't feel things, but because you stopped listening for your own wanting a long time ago. You've gotten so skilled at reading a room, sensing what everyone else requires before they ask, that you've quietly lost the thread of what you require. This eclipse pulls at your solar 8th house, dragging old emotional debts into the light, the ones where you gave endlessly and never once said what you hoped to receive in return. Tonight, try this. Write 3 honest wants, no audience, nothing to send anywhere, just enough privacy to remember the shape of your own desire. You cannot ask for what you've forgotten you want, and right now you've forgotten. Find it again before you try to give anything else away. Leo, you know how to be admired. You do not know how to be known, and those are not the same thing. Like Cancer's forgotten wanting, this is another kind of hiding, except yours is loud instead of quiet. You perform confidence, you deflect praise with a joke, you keep the vulnerable request locked somewhere no one can reach it. This eclipse lands in your solar 7th house, exposing exactly what your performances have been shielding inside your closest partnerships. So today, try something smaller than it sounds. Accept one compliment with only the words, "thank you." No joke after it, no self-deprecating addition to soften the exposure. Just let it land and stay there. Applause was never the same thing as being known, and you've been collecting applause while quietly starving for the other thing. Virgo, you are one of the 3 signs most affected by this eclipse, and it is not subtle about where it's pointing. It falls directly opposite your sign, pulling hard on your solar 7th house, the exact place where you've stayed useful instead of honest. You edit everyone else's sentences in your head while your own draft sits unsent. Again, you perfect everyone's needs except yours, because yours never feel finished enough to say out loud. So here is the decision in front of you. Send one imperfect message today. Not the 4th revision, not the polished version, the honest, slightly rough one. Because what you'll discover is this: the relationship survives your imperfect sentence completely fine. It was never the imperfection people couldn't handle. It was your absence from your own words. So look at what's actually connecting these 3 threads tonight. A forgotten want, a compliment deflected, a message endlessly redrafted. Someone asks you a direct question today. Notice the instinct, the one that reaches for what they want to hear instead of what's true. Choose differently this time. Give the real answer, even if it costs you their comfort. Here's what happens next for all 3 of you. You hear something that's been buried under years of careful timing, careful diplomacy, careful dissolving. Your own voice, unmistakably yours. Capricorn, you're still in that room, but the sentence already left your mouth. Aquarius, you've made the ask, and nobody needed convincing but you. And Pisces, the tide has pulled back, and you're standing there, visible, on ground that was always yours. It doesn't erase the shore, it only shows it to you. Remember the tide from the beginning. It looked like loss then, water pulling back, the shore going bare, something taken away. You watched it and felt the old fear that whatever recedes is gone for good. But nothing was gone. It was only hidden, waiting for the water to leave long enough for you to see the ground you'd been standing on the whole time. That's the cost nobody tells you about. You have to let the tide go out. You have to sit in the exposure before you get the clarity. And here's the strange part. The thing you thought would drown you is the same thing that reveals you. That kitchen table, the 2 people saying nothing, you thought that silence was failure. It wasn't. It was the tide sitting still, waiting. The sentence you've been rationing for months, maybe years, was already sitting on the sand between you. You just couldn't see it while the water was high and moving and giving you every excuse to wait one more day. That's the contradiction. What frightened you was never the silence. It was the one sentence underneath it. So here's where this ends and where you begin. You don't need the whole ocean to change. You only need the 24 hours after August 28, when the tide is still low enough to see what it uncovered. Say the one sentence you've rationed. Not louder, not softer, just spoken. The shore was always there. You just needed the water to leave, briefly, so you could see it clearly, and decide, once, to stop shrinking in front of it. Picture that kitchen table again. Only this time, you're the one who speaks first. If this reached the sentence you've been rationing, subscribe to Hidden Wisdom. The tide turns again tomorrow, and so can you.